Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mason Brown. I'm the guy who sits in this chair, and I am happy to have you back. The Batman, a film directed by Matt Reeves and starring Robert Pattinson, obviously just recently came out in theaters, and I had the chance to go see it. This is a film I've been looking forward to for a long time. I've got a long history of love for the character, for the mythos, for the setting of Gotham, and for the larger DC universe. As a big fan of superheroes and the stories that they can tell, the ways that they can inspire us, I was very interested to see this film. This film actually has a rather long history as far as its release dates go. Originally, this film was slated all the way back when Ben Affleck was still playing the role of Batman. He was in talks to direct and produce and co-write and star in the film. And as interested as I would have been to see that film, he unfortunately had to step away, and Matt Reeves took up the mantle, at least as far as the directing goes, creating a cast, creating a world and a mythos that is separated from other DC films, other recent DC films, much in the way that The Dark Knight and most other Batman films have been separated. There's a lot to talk about in this film, a lot that I liked, a couple things that I did not like. Let's dive into my review of The Batman. First up, the cast. I think this film is a very well cast. I think they made some very interesting choices as far as some of their leading roles go. Robert Pattinson, I know a lot of people kind of turned their heads when they heard that he was cast within this role. I was very interested to see what he's done. I unfortunately have not seen much of his work outside of Harry Potter and Twilight, though I know that he has really built up for himself an impressive reputation as a well-rounded actor who is very committed to his roles. I really had no hesitation with him taking on the mantle, as it were. I think this was an excellent Batman. This Batman, in many ways, felt different than many of the Batmen that we've seen in the past. This movie, in many ways, focuses on an investigation. It focuses on the crime and the underworld, kind of the corruption in the streets, all the way from the streets all the way to the city hall. Every aspect, every level of Gotham that is sort of set up within this film. This film, in many ways, is a Batman movie. That's obvious, but I think this one, more than a number of other movies that we've seen, really heavily focuses on the Batman. There's little that we see of Bruce Wayne, and certainly not a Bruce Wayne as we've come to know him. This is definitely very early within the Batman journey, where a Batman is struggling to find a balance and kind of find a purpose. A lot of his actions are taken out of vengeance, out of anger, out of retribution, searching for justice, a very violent justice. He still has his signature morals as far as no killing, as far as no guns, some of those things that we've come to expect out of Batman. This setting is so Batman focused that we really get to see a street level investigation led by the cops, led by the Gotham PD, primarily led by Jim Gordon and the Batman. I love to see Batman on crime scenes with cops, walking around, in broad daylight. They're taking pictures of the evidence, and he's around. I love there's an early scene where he finds a piece of investigation. He finds it, and then a photographer kind of notices him looking at a clue that they hadn't picked up, and goes on to take a picture of it and kind of categorize it as they will. I love to see him on the case. I think Robert Pattinson brought a great intensity to the role. There are many times where he doesn't speak much. Many times, especially as Bruce Wayne when he's out in public, that he hardly says anything at all. But there is such a presence to him, such an emotional core that you can really feel. Even though a lot of the emotions I felt within this movie were very sort of under the surface. Certainly, the emotions were certainly there, very strong emotions. A lot of, like I said, anger and vengeance and kind of like resentment for what has happened to Gotham, how Gotham has gotten to where it is. and that driving obsession with justice and fear. He brings such Robert Pattinson, that is, brings such a strong level of intensity to this, whether he's wearing the cowl or not. He is so focused on the matter at hand that you can really see he's cut out so many other parts of his life that he doesn't want to expose himself to. Many relationships within this film that he is trying to kind of cut himself off from his emotional core, from his emotional side, because he feels that would be sort of a weakness. He doesn't know where to go with that vulnerability. In many relationships within this film, his relationship with Alfred, his relationship with Selina Kyle, certainly as their kind of a budding relationship starts to grow, and he is confronted with sort of his own priorities, his own desires, and what matters to him, and what he wants to leave behind, what he desires for Gotham to become. And especially in his relationship with James Gordon, I thought that was something that I especially enjoyed in this film. Jim Gordon, obviously played by Jeffrey Wright, who I really enjoy. He's a very strong actor who really brings a lot to his roles. There's a number of scenes in this film where Batman and Gordon are investigating a scene or talking about evidence or kind of going over what they've discovered in the presence of other cops and other press and whatever that might be, and kind of seeing the intensity between them. Sometimes they're playing it up to kind of create, what they want others to see within them as they are investigating together and collaborating together. You really get a sense that they have formed some kind of a relationship that they really trust each other, and at times they're the only people that they trust is each other. And I really appreciate that they've sort of already established this relationship between them, which I'm very interested to see how that developed. One thing that I did appreciate about this movie is that it didn't feel the need to show us Batman's origin. I feel like we've seen that a number of times before. I feel like it's something that we as an audience are at least familiar with, much in the same way that the recent Spider-Man films have not shown Peter Parker being bitten by a spider and his Uncle Ben and all of that, much of which is a story that we've seen before and kind of understand about the character. I appreciated that in this film, it starts out and this is Batman. This is Gotham. This is the story and characters that that you're familiar with, a setting that you're familiar with, but we're going to show it in a little bit of a different way, something that I really appreciated. I will say that after watching this film, I definitely wanted to learn more about the origin. Ironically, I really wanted to find out more about how Batman got to be where he is, how Gordon got to be where he is, and their relationship, how that formed, how Batman has sort of grown just within the 2 years that he's been taking on this role within Gotham, how that's affected crime. They did a great job right at the opening of this film of really kind of playing into the fear that criminals feel whenever they see the bat signal, and knowing that Batman could be anywhere, really leading into kind of that mythical like horror of a masked vigilante that could be in any shadow, which I loved that. That was a terrific take to kind of open up the film with. Really struck at the core of Batman as he is, and especially as he is at the beginning of this film, and sort of his story arc as he progresses. And there really aren't any characters in this film that don't shine, especially with Selina Kyle, as Zoe Kravitz playing Selina Kyle, or as we're much more familiar with her as Catwoman. You can see the beginnings of that character within this film, and her intensity, her passion, that she really has a good core, like a good moral core, but she is willing to do things that are not so morally good. In much the same way as Batman, she is motivated by vengeance, by a desire for a violent justice, and that is a very strong theme within this film. This need for some kind of vigilante justice, to take matters into your own hands because others won't make the choices that need to be made, or at least that the characters feel need to be made. And Selina Kyle very much fits right into this, and her dynamic with Batman is very strong. You can definitely feel that sort of intensity, and again with Robert Pattinson's Batman not wanting to open himself up to other people, not wanting to expose himself in a way that shows that he cares for these other people in his life. I think the both of them played very strongly off of that. I'm very interested to see where they take Catwoman and, you know, Selina Kyle and her character going forward. But she was a standout for me in this film. She really did a wonderful job, a very strong performance. It really draws you into the character, and she was definitely one of my favorite parts of this film. Paul Dano as the Riddler, I think, was really an inspired choice. He is an actor who you've likely seen in a number of things, but he is almost, he has one of those faces that is almost forgettable. He almost looks like just a regular kind of guy, something that you would not really assume much of, which in this movie actually plays really well. When he is finally unmasked, he just seems like a regular guy. And again, the intensity that he brings to the role, the obsession and the passion, the riddles and clues that he strings Batman and the GCPD along with, I thought was really strong. As I've said in other videos, I love riddles and clues and kind of a mystery unraveling. I thought this film, for the most part, did a great job hiding and seeding these clues and riddles, their codes and all sorts of things, and seeing the creativity of the writing of Matt Reeves, as well as the ingenuity of, obviously, the character Riddler and Batman, as he is able to sort of decipher and figure out these clues as they go along. I think that added a lot to the kind of the normal procedural investigation of sort of your traditional serial killer that definitely has a bent on violent justice. You see how that kind of keeps showing up? This sort of a vigilante justice that Riddler is very much like Batman, very much trying to expose the lies, expose the corruption that has become foundational in the city of Gotham. How the streets on every level, from the from the slums to City Hall, corruption is in every corner of the city, and the Riddler feels it is his mission to expose and destroy the corruption that is within Gotham. Makes for, again, a very strong kind of a overarching theme, a message that really gets at the core of Batman, what his priorities are, what his desires are for the city of Gotham, his response to the corruption, his response to the murder and the death, and understanding what is proper justice, and sort of taking that into your own hands, and making those choices, and what that means for him. Again, the kind of legacy that he wants to leave behind for himself, with the people of Gotham. I thought was a very smart way to drive out these themes and really kind of force Batman to question his actions, question his motives, and what he wants for the city of Gotham, what his goals are, and how he wants to be viewed by the city and by the police and by the mayor. Colin Farrell as the Penguin. This movie is certainly not focused on him, but it does go into a lot as far as his character, his motives. There's a good amount of screen time with him. You definitely get the idea that he is going to become a much larger character within these films. But the portrayal by Colin Farrell is really captivating. Obviously, they went all in on the prosthetics, the makeup. It is incredible. It doesn't look anything like him. It doesn't sound anything like him. I think if I didn't know that he was playing this, I would not know. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't be able to tell. His mannerisms and his accent, his overall portrayal, it fits so perfectly in this, and it's such a strange bit of casting to put an actor like Colin Farrell in this role. Really inspired. I don't know kind of where the idea came from, at what point Matt Reeves or those casting this film thought that he would be the choice. Certainly not the choice that I would make, but very much on point. Again, as with a lot of these characters, I have a lot of interest in how they got to where they are and where their story is going. It sounds like, at least as far as the Penguin, we are going to get an HBO Max show. That is going to be kind of the aftermath of this film, kind of following where he goes from here, potentially setting up later versions or where he might be in later Batman films. Definitely be very interested in that story. There's a lot more to tell about the Penguin story, but I love what they gave us. I really enjoyed his portrayal as well. I also wanted to talk about some of Batman's gadgets in this film. I really liked the gadgets in this film. Some of them were futuristic enough that they were, maybe 10, 15 years in the future, but still believable that they would be in a film like this, that they would be in a setting like this, especially when used by Batman. Some of them I was a little bit unimpressed by, but I also got the idea that, this is early Batman. He's still working on a lot of these things. I love the way that he uses his grappling gun. That seems to kind of like shoot out of his gauntlets. The feature that his bat symbol is actually a sort of a batarang, sort of a knife that he uses a couple times in the film. I thought that was a really cool choice to actually have some utility, that the bat symbol itself is a detachable part of his kit. The Batmobile itself, I think it's incredible. I think it fits really well with kind of the dynamic they're going with. We've certainly seen more impressive Batmobiles. The Tumbler is one of my favorites from the Nolan trilogy. I'm also I really like the design and the utility of the Ben Affleck Batmobile. But this Batmobile is grounded enough that you can believe that somebody could be driving on the streets with it, but just fantastical enough, just advanced enough that it feels like a Batmobile. It's very much a very heavily souped up muscle car. It's got a large jet propulsion on the back, and it's very intimidating. And the chase sequence that they have in the film is really well done. I think it lends just as much to the tone and to the Batman that they're creating as anything else in this film. I love the sound design, especially on the Batmobile. The real growl. There's a real presence even to the car that feels very, very Batman. I also love the bat suit. I mentioned a couple features of it earlier, but I love the idea of a pretty heavily armored bat suit. He takes a number of shots, a number of hits in this film, and that just lends itself to the mythos that this is an untouchable monster, that this is a creature of the night who was unkillable and very intimidating. It really lends itself to the fear aspect of this Batman, which I really appreciated, and it was just really cool. It's just really cool. Another feature of this film that I thought was really well done is the sound design, and especially the music. The music opens, or the movie opens up with a very characteristic Batman theme. Although it's a completely new theme created by Michael Giacchino. I believe it's pronounced Giacchino. The score in this movie feels like Batman. It feels like a classic Batman theme. There are times where it really stands out in a strong way within the film, in a good way. A really resounding. I just think it really lends itself to this new series. It distinguishes itself enough from past themes that we've heard, which we've had some excellent Batman music, some of the most iconic music in film history. This one lends itself in a very different way, but I think stands up with some of the great composers and great music, great themes that we've heard for Batman in the past. So overall, if you couldn't already tell, I really enjoy this movie. I would say that this is a great film. I don't think it's for everyone. It's got a lot of heavier moments. It's certainly not as bright as even other Batman films that we've seen. Certainly not as whimsical. But for what it is, for what it sets out to be, it is a riveting Batman film and a true Batman film. This may be the movie that made me feel the most like this is Batman. This is the mythos and the world that they're kind of creating, that they're setting up. This is very characteristic and very understandably, very recognizably Batman, and the characters that they put in here, the challenges that they put up to Batman, and the way that he grows and learns from them, and really over the course of the film, in many ways comes into his own. Understanding what it means to be more than a vigilante, but to be a hero. And I am very excited to see where this series goes. I think the series is in very good hands with Matt Reeves. I've been a fan of Matt Reeves since his Planet of the Apes films, with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes. And I am very excited to see where he takes this series. It sounds like we're going to be getting a lot of Batman going forward. There's a number of series and films that are in development, branching off of this film. We already have a couple HBO Max series that have been confirmed or are in development. I already talked about the Penguin TV series. Also sounds like a potential a GCPD or Gotham City Police Department TV show that would be set in Batman's first year, so about a year before this film takes place. And it would kind of be told from the point of view of the police department and show the corruption there and how they respond to this new Batman that is hitting the streets. There's a talk of another show that would cover Arkham, the Arkham Asylum, the inhabitants there, its history, and it would be sort of framed as a horror show, as would be very easy to imagine, with a psychological horror that is inherent to a sort of property like that, a place that has that much mythology and that much mayhem tied to its name. So that also would be very interesting. There's also talk about a Catwoman spin-off film, which I think would be very interesting to see, although I really like her with Batman. So I imagine we'll see them in future films. Then of course we have future Batman films that will be coming out. They have announced those as well. But I'm very interested to see where this all goes. This movie certainly isn't perfect. Definitely has some flaws. Again, there's some of the gadgets, some of the things. There's some storytelling elements that didn't really click with me, at least at the beginning. But I imagine that this film, upon a rewatch, I think this film would be much better. I think there's a lot of intricate storytelling going on that I think would be much easier to follow on a second viewing, and probably with some subtitles. But that'll wrap up my my review here. Sorry it's not very structured. Sorry it's a little bit long. But thank you for sticking around. I definitely recommend you go check out this movie. Again, it's not for everyone, but I think there's a lot here to really love. I think there's a lot here that can be built on, and I'm very excited to see where this goes. But those are my thoughts on the Batman movie, as jumbled up as they may be. What about you? Have you had a chance to see the movie yet? Or are you looking forward to seeing it? What are your thoughts? Did you enjoy it? Did it meet your expectations? Did it beat your expectations? What are some things that you really enjoyed? Some things that you would have changed? Let me know in the comments down below. Or, better yet, make a video of yourself. Make a review and post it up down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. That'll do it for me today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time right here. Take care.